Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of Dexter Original Sin, Episode 1, and in the beginning. Please make sure to hit that sub button so you don't miss any of my reviews of Dexter Original Sin. I'm happy to be doing another Dexter show. I had done Dexter New Blood, so I'm happy to be doing Original Sin, which I originally wasn't planning to do, but here we are. So what's pretty cool about this opening of the show is that we actually open up with a retcon of Dexter New Blood's ending that was very hated, and it is smart they did this because it was silly to bring Michael C. Hall back to just kill him again. So it's smart they get him ready for the new show that's going to come out in June 2025, which is Dexter Resurrection. But we see this is right after he got shot by his own son in New Blood, and he lives. And the emergency sign at the hospital changes to emerge. And what the narration says is it really is like what they say. Your life flashes before your eyes. So that's setting up the past tense that Dexter is talking through in this show when we see what happened in his life. I like how they pulled out from the hospital and this effect they had going down the hallway of Dexter being kept alive. And then they will show that at the end of the flashback sequence of when he is born, and they'll show at the end of the episode when he is in his new job. So it was very well thought out. So when we see, though, this birth of Dexter, I also love they are doing the green tint in the flashbacks like they did in the original show. And then they also recreate the original intro of the show mixed with parts of the season 4 intro, even with the song and the hitting of the mosquito. So I thought that was so good. And already what stands out to me about this show compared to New Blood is it feels so much more like Dexter than New Blood ever did. And I think that's a really big accomplishment. So where we start in the show is in 1991 with a young Dexter. He's in med school and he's practicing surgery. He's already getting called a freak. And I love when he tells his professor, I didn't feel anything. And he's like, that's what makes you special. And as we go through this episode, we get to meet the younger versions of these different characters we know and love from the original show. We see young Masuka at the crime scene, and he has hair. And we have Bautista, who gets the award for looking exactly like the original Batista. So props on that. And now we'll meet big actors here that are put in the show for different characters, like Patrick Dempsey is playing Captain Spencer. Christian Slater is now taking on the role of Harry Morgan. He's a sergeant at this time. And Sarah Michelle Gellar, who is the best, she is playing Tanya Martin, who is the boss of forensics. Now, right away, seeing somebody like Patrick Dempsey and Sarah Michelle Gellar and knowing their bigger names and that they're in this show, we don't know how long, if this show is going to be more than one season or not, but I'm just going to predict in how the Dexter format goes is that definitely Patrick Dempsey and Sarah Michelle Gellar are going to be Dexter's first big victims, I feel like. I feel like there's more to them that seems off, and some conspiracy will probably start to brew. Maybe some way they're connected to this murder we're seeing, or series of murders of these families. It would make perfect sense to have people that would set Dex off to do it. And it's also interesting that his dad works for them, so it could be something they do to his dad as well, we'll see. Now, at dinner, we get to meet young Deb. This is played by Molly Brown, and she blew me away. I mean, the mannerisms, she literally encompasses Deb from the original show. To me, this was the best performance of the episode. I was actually just thinking, how could you do this any better than this? It was really awesome. But we'll see when she goes upstairs that Dexter informs Harry that slicing into the body didn't satisfy his urges. And like he had said in that scene, there's no blood, which doesn't help. And the dad's like, we're going to figure this out. Because remember, the dad knows that Dexter has these killer tendencies, but only with animals at this point. Now, they did a really good job staying true with the music to the 90s and it being in 91. And I love even just the writing where at the job fair, Dex calls everyone shiny happy people, which is a reference to the REM song that's great, that came out that year. And I love the writing where he says people wanted to plan their lives and all I wanted to do was end one. And we hear for the first time here the Masuka laugh, which is great, and that actor nails it. And he's perfectly still a pervert Masuka. So they kept true to the character, and Dexter will start showing his skills because he's seeing similarities between those crime photos of Kill 7 and Kill 9. So he's like, that might be the same killer, and that will come wrap around by why they want to hire him. Also, for pointing fingers at Sarah Michelle Gellar possibly being someone bad, it makes sense because she's the one who is putting the first suspect out there as Levi Reed. It's a classic type of diversion strategy. Now, it is weird to me how they're doing his inner monologue because it being in the past tense and Dexter talking about his life that flashed before his eyes and catching us up on his life. There's moments though where it still kind of tries to do like currently in his head where he reacts to things, and it makes it feel weird switching back and forth the little bit they do of that. So I do think it's weird, and I hope they just stick to one because it can get a little confusing at times, but I'm sure that sticking to the past tense is what's going to stick. But it's tough because you love his reactions in the moment. But there's one scene he's talking about that before he did the deed the first time in Killing, he spent a lot of time fantasizing about it. And you see his porn mag is filled with serial killer news clippings. So this is what he's using his fantasies on. And he's wondering if he is like them. But he's interrupted by Deb. She's excited to go to this party. And what happens here is Deb gets taken advantage of and Dexter saves the day. But the big thing is he was about to kill this guy with the knife if Deb didn't tackle him. I love, though, so true to Deb, like afterwards, poor Deb, she's just throwing up and she's like, hold my effing hair back. Now, in our current timeline in this show, you're seeing Dexter talking about how hunting trips at this point weren't doing it anymore for Dexter. He's like, animals aren't enough. You taught me the code to channel my urges. What's the point if I can't use it? And that's where he opens up to his father about how he was tempted to kill at the party, and he gives his dad a heart attack. So at the end of the day, no matter who you are and you're a parent, you're trying to get your kid to be an honest, good serial killer, it's never going to be an easy process at all. Now, while their dad's in the hospital, Dexter tells Deb he would go to her volleyball game. And this is a theme that would always go on with the show, where Dexter would constantly disappoint Deb because of his secret life, and Deb being very aloof to it. And I love that this actress of Deb, Molly Brown, really keeps true to that. And you even see it at the end where she's like, I looked for the nurse and I couldn't find her anywhere. That she's just so out of the loop, and it really keeps Dexter grounded, having that innocence of Deb around in the picture. Probably a big part of what was missing in New Blood. So while Harry's condition is getting worse, Dex becomes suspicious of the nurse. He realizes she took out of the picture in the obituary one of her victims, and he says she might be a fellow traveler, and he'll even allude later on that she has a dark passenger, so I really like that. But it was cool how they incorporated how he would learn about the high levels of potassium nitrate, that this nurse was the one first using that for her victims, and that his med teacher would tell him it is nearly undetectable. The nurse also had cat photos on her desk. I love the narration here. He's like, I always had a kinship with cats, nature's own serial killers. That was great. So Dex always knew for his first kill of a human, he had to get the go-ahead from his father. That was their communication between each other the dad always wanted to keep. And his dad gives him the okay when Dexter fills him in as what's happening here with this nurse. He says, stop her, and Dexter says, I've been waiting to hear those words for so long. And he says, tonight's the night. So that's where it's weird, where they're kind of forcing in the present tense at a moment in his head, so it just feels jumbled a bit. My favorite line of the episode is when Dexter's capturing the nurse and he says, you never forget your first time. Mine was with an older woman. So good, and I'm so happy Michael C. Hall is doing the narration. Now, I love how they cut between Deb at her volleyball game and her normal life competing in this while Dexter's in the process of killing somebody. And it's interesting the nurse justifies her killings as taking people out of their misery, people don't deserve really to live. In this case, for the dad, it's because of his drinking and smoking problems, so she took him as someone she'd want to make a victim, but as Dexter says, they never told you or gave you the right to do that. And I love the match cut here of her pounding heart and fear of the nurse with the stopping at the volleyball game. So there's really good editing going on here and directing. Also, I love they do the announcer at the volleyball game saying, it's Morgan for the kill, when Deb spikes the ball while he's really killing the nurse. So great to see that kind of editing. And the big moment is Deb sees Dex is not at the game watching. And I love the Dexter music kicks in here when he's killing the nurse, to keep that eerie feel. And Dexter feeds her to the alligators, which was a great move because a lot of people complained in the original series why he never did that. And it's total Maxine style, so I love it. And he has his first trophies here, which are her earrings. And Dexter will reflect on how he should never get caught, and that's something he always would repeat to himself throughout the series. And he gets spooked because the police are at his home now. But we'll see, it's actually a good thing in that he says he feels relief because he thought he was in trouble, but he's getting a new job. Now, Dex graduates the Miami U, thinks Deb misses his graduation, but she ends up showing up. And you see how already Deb's always teaching him the value of family, and that is something that would be in the original series as well. So it worked really well here, and him hugging her back. And like I said, I just love the aloofness that Molly Brown's bringing to Deb so true to her when she's like, sorry, I couldn't find your nurse for the life of me. And then she's spinning the dad around like that he's all normal again. And we know deep down, Dex knows and his dad knows that Dex saved him. And that Dex always has that kind of superhero story because the people he kills are people who are bad people. Now, at home, Harry will ask Dex how it felt, and he says it felt right. And I love they had Harry cry because he's saying in the narration his dad's not going to change, but it's also at the end of the day, he's doing what he can, but his son is a killer, and it's not normal, it's hard to process. And I love the narration saying this part in his life, the change was necessary, and it's two changes. It's him killing the human and also him starting his job at his dad's station. And you see him spinning in the new chair, so it does that pull-out effect, like I said, that was put in the birth, and it was put in him staying alive from New Blood. And it makes me really excited for where it's going to go. And it's exciting now because he's in the station, so we'll get to see more of Bautista, and we'll get to see his boss being Sarah Michelle Gellar. So we'll see how that kind of turns out now with more of the players. We didn't see as much this episode, kind of see how they do. I'm excited to see that, but I was really, really impressed. I had no expectations going into this, and I really think that they really nailed the mannerisms of all these characters. Look-wise, I think they all did great. Now, Patrick Gibson, who plays Dexter, maybe look-wise, he's a little off, but hopefully now with the shorter hair, it will help. And I think his mannerisms are still really good, and his acting's really good too, feeling like Michael C. Hall. So I think overall, I'm very impressed with how they're doing this as a prequel, and that it felt a lot like the original series in look, tone, obviously the music, and I love they're doing the green tinted flashbacks again. So it makes me really excited. So I'm giving this one a 9, and I can't wait to see what's next. So let me know what you thought down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment, try to respond to as many as I can. Hit that sub button so you don't miss one of my reviews of Dexter Original Sin, and I'll see you next time.